The cell had no corners. It was a sphere of pale light suspended in endless black, a hollow of soundless time where nothing breathed, nothing changed. Inside that sphere a man knelt. His name was Elias Reeve, and he was the last human alive. He did not know how many years had passed since the fall of Earth. The memories were fragments now. Skies burning crimson, the silver fleets of the Zir Dominion blotting out the sun, the cries of his people fading beneath orbital fire. He remembered his daughter's face, the warmth of her hand, and then nothing but the long silence of captivity. The Zir had taken everything, yet somehow Elias remained, not by mercy but by mistake. They called him Subject 9H, a relic of a dead species, something to be studied then forgotten. His cage was a prison of light within the Dominion's deepest facility on the frozen world of Row 9, orbiting a dying star. The guards never spoke to him. Machines tended his body. Time was measured only by his own heartbeat. But tonight, the heartbeat felt different. Something in the rhythm of the lights had changed. A flicker too brief for the alien systems to register, but enough for a human mind sharpened by solitude to notice. Elias lifted his head, the motion slow, deliberate. His once dark hair had turned gray, his body lean but unbroken. The exile thought humans were fragile, that they broke in silence. They had never understood what silence truly meant to a species that once reached the stars. Elias rose to his feet. He pressed his hand against the light that formed the wall. It burned cold against his skin. Beneath the pain, he felt it. A hum, weak, imperfect. The power grid was faltering. Far beyond his prison, the Dominion was collapsing. The war that ended Earth had fractured their empire. Civil strife, rebellion, whispers of entire fleets vanishing into void storms. The Xir were no longer gods of the galaxy. Their networks flickered, their order failing. And in that failing system, something ancient stirred. A human will that refused extinction. Elias had waited for this. Not out of hope, that had died with his world, but out of instinct. Humans adapted, survived, endured, and when endurance found opportunity, it became vengeance. He closed his eyes. For years he had traced every pulse, every flicker, every vibration in the cell. He knew its pattern like a heartbeat. Now the rhythm was off, a weakness in the quantum lattice. He moved to the far side of the sphere and drew his fingers through the air, marking where the power lines intersected. A faint shimmer followed the motion, and then a crack, a whisper of air escaped, soundless in the void. Elias smiled, the first real smile in decades. He pressed both hands against the crack. Pain surged through his veins as the energy bit into him, but he did not move. He pushed harder, the way he once pushed through storms on ruined Earth, through despair and cold and fear. The wall flared bright white, then shattered into a spray of dissolving light. Elias stumbled out into the corridor beyond. The air was thin, metallic, biting with frost. The prison halls were empty. Only the distant hum of dying machinery echoed through them. For the first time in half a century, Elias Reeve took a step as a free man. He moved slowly at first, cautious. His bare feet left faint prints in the frost as he crossed the corridor. The light panels overhead flickered, casting long shadows on walls lined with alien script. He could not read it, but he didn't need to. He felt it, the arrogance, the control. He would tear it down one piece at a time. A faint hiss caught his ear. From around the corner, a small spherical drone floated into view, its single red eye glowing dimly. Elias froze. The drone paused, scanning. Then it spoke, voice distorted. Subject 9H. Anomaly detected. Elias met its gaze, and something old sparked behind his eyes. The unyielding defiance of a human soldier. No, he whispered, his voice dry but steady. Correction. Freedom detected. The drone's alarm began to rise, but Elias was faster. His hands moved with precision born of decades of watching, waiting, learning. A single strike to the maintenance seam, a twist, a pull, and the machine fell silent, its light fading. Elias stood alone again, in the quiet hum of a dying empire. And somewhere in that silence, humanity awoke once more. The corridors of Row 9 stretched like veins through the frozen mountain, humming faintly with the last heartbeat of a dying empire. Elias Reeve walked them like a ghost returning to haunt its conquerors. The facility was collapsing. He could feel it. the way the air vibrated with imbalance, the way the emergency lights flickered between pale blue and the deep red of system failure. Once the Dominion's prisons had been models of precision, their energy fields flawless, their guards unerring. Now everything was fractured. A race that once enslaved 1,000 worlds was coming apart, and Elias, the last human, was walking through the cracks. He stopped beside a shattered viewport. Beyond the glass stretched the frozen wasteland of Row 9, an endless plain of blue ice and dead storms, beneath the fading glow of a red dwarf star. A single Exir dropship lay half buried in the snow, its hull torn open like the carcass of a metal beast. He pressed his hand against the cold glass, staring out at the desolation. Home, he whispered bitterly. Different sun, same grave. The air around him quivered with faint static. The voice came suddenly from the walls themselves in distant, fragmented, human. Anomaly detected. Containment breach. Elias turned sharply. The sound wasn't from any drone this time. It was the station's central intelligence struggling to remain coherent. That meant he wasn't alone, at least not entirely. He searched the control panels along the corridor, fingers brushing over the alien glyphs until he found what he needed. A manual interface, cracked but functional. He pressed the panel and a translucent blue screen flickered to life, showing the Dominion's insignia, a serpent of stars devouring its own tail. Then the image shifted. A map appeared, sector data, transmission routes, and an alert beacon. Elias's eyes narrowed. The beacon wasn't for reinforcements. It was for evacuation. Someone, or something, had already tried to flee. He began to decipher the coordinates using what fragments of Zir language he had learned through years of observation. The beacon was transmitting to a system nearby, Vandrix Prime, once a Dominion hub world. If any of the Exir command still lived, they would be there. And if they had survived, they would know what had happened to humanity's remnants. He clenched his fists. For decades he had imagined his people gone, wiped clean from existence. But if even a rumor remained, if a single echo lingered somewhere in the ruins of their war, he would find it. The sound of movement broke his thoughts. From a side passage, 3 Zire soldiers emerged, tall, mantis-like forms clad in fractal armor that shimmered between colors. Their faces were smooth plates of black chitin, and their eyes glowed faint violet. They moved with eerie calm, weapons drawn. Elias ducked behind a console. His heart raced, but not with fear, with focus. He had no weapon, only his hands, his mind, and the lessons of survival that no alien could comprehend. The soldiers communicated in clicks and low tones. One approached the broken drone he'd destroyed. Another scanned the area, its weapon pulsing. The third, the leader, moved closer to the console where Elias hid. He waited, breath still. The hum of their scanners filled the corridor. Then, as the leader passed, Elias struck. He lunged low, pulling a cable from the console and wrapping it around the creature's throat. The alien screeched, weapon firing wild bursts of light into the wall. Elias ducked, twisting the cable with brutal efficiency until the soldier collapsed. He seized its weapon, aimed, and fired. 2 flashes, precise and silent. The other Exir fell where they stood. When the echoes faded, Elias was left in the red glow of warning lights, chest heaving. He stared at the alien weapon in his hands, its grip strange, its edges warm. Humans made fire, he murmured. We'll use yours too. He stripped the armor from the fallen leader and adjusted it to his form. It was heavy but functional, the Dominion's own shield against them. With the weapon slung across his back, Elias turned toward the hangar access. A low vibration shook the floor beneath him, engines spinning up somewhere deep below. He followed the sound, descending through winding tunnels until he reached the hangar itself. There in the dim light rested a small Xir scout craft, its canopy open, systems flickering. He stepped closer, feeling the warmth of power still flowing through it. The pilot was gone, dead or fled. Either way, the path was clear. Elias climbed in. The controls glowed faintly as if recognizing a foreign presence. He placed his hand on the interface panel. The ship hesitated, then accepted. Outside, the storm was rising. Wind howled across the ice plains, carrying shards of frost like shattered glass. The hangar doors began to open. Elias took a slow breath and looked once more into the black sky. Vandrix Prime, he whispered. Let's see what's left of your gods, and with that, the last human prisoner left row 9, a ghost rising from the ashes of extinction, carried by alien wings toward a galaxy that had forgotten his kind, but it would remember soon. Stars drifted past the canopy like dying embers. Elias Reeve sat motionless in the cockpit of the HFY scout ship as it cut through the void. He had been flying for hours, maybe days. The alien navigation system spoke in symbols and tones he barely understood, but he followed the pulse of the beacon that still whispered across the stars, leading him to Vandrix Prime. The ship hummed around him, alive but weary, like the remnants of a song long forgotten. It smelled faintly of ozone and cold metal. Every now and then the engine stuttered, echoing the instability of the Dominion itself. Elias studied his reflection in the dim canopy. The alien armor covered most of his body, but his face, lined, tired, and unmistakably human, looked back at him with quiet fire. He was no soldier now, no captive either. He was something else, something the HFY had never planned for, the last consequence of their victory. The ship shuddered as it entered Vandrix's atmosphere. Fire streaked along the hull, clouds of green lightning flashing through the red mist. Then silence. The storm broke and the planet revealed itself below. What had once been a world of spires and crystalline towers was now a graveyard. The cities were nothing but black silhouettes against a gray horizon. The oceans had turned to mirrors of ash. The Dominion's capital, once the jewel of 10,000 worlds, now lay shattered. Elias guided the ship down into the ruins. The landing was rough, but he welcomed the impact. It reminded him he was still alive. The hatch opened with a hiss, releasing him into air that smelled of smoke and decay. The sky hung low, heavy with dust. The wind carried faint echoes, mechanical cries, the distant rumble of structures collapsing under their own weight. Vandrix Prime was dying, and it sang its death in whispers. Elias began to walk. He moved through wide streets filled with the skeletons of alien machines. Fallen banners of the Dominion clung to broken walls. Here and there, the faint glow of Xir runes still pulsed weakly, feeding on the last sparks of power. Every step he took stirred the ashes of a civilization that had believed itself eternal. And then he saw them. 3 figures, crouched beside a shattered transport. Xir. But they were not the towering, proud soldiers he remembered. These were lean, their armor cracked and discolored. Their movements were hesitant. One of them was tending to another's wounded limb, wrapping it with a strip torn from a banner. They looked up as Elias approached. For a moment, no one moved. The wind whistled through the hollow towers. Then the nearest one, a smaller gear with dull silver eyes, raised its weapon, though its hands trembled. Elias didn't lift his own. He simply stood there, studying them. There was no hatred left in his eyes, only understanding. Empires fell. Species broke. Even the mighty bled, one of them spoke, voice dry and halting. Human, impossible. Elias tilted his head. You said that before, he murmured. And yet here we are. The smaller sire hesitated. You cannot be alive. The purge failed, Elias interrupted softly. Everything fails eventually. They stared at him as though looking at a ghost. And maybe he was one. A ghost of the world they'd burned. He stepped closer, lowering his weapon. What happened here? The wounded Xir looked away, clicking weakly. Dominion, broken. The core worlds turned against the high clans. Rebellion spread. Machines went silent. The stars themselves fell dark. There is no order, only ruin. Elias let the words settle. So the Dominion had destroyed itself, pride devouring pride. He almost laughed, but it caught in his throat. There was no joy in this, only ashes. Do any of your kind still lead? He asked. The smallest one shook its head. The last High Commander fled to the Sanctum Vault. It lies beneath this world, hidden, guarded. Elias's eyes narrowed. And within that vault, records? Prison archives. The truth of what you did to Earth, silence. Then reluctantly a nod. The human stepped back. Then that's where I'm going. You won't survive, one hissed. Elias gave a faint, weary smile. I already didn't. He turned, walking toward the heart of the ruins where a faint pulsing light marked the vault's entrance. The Xir did not stop him. They simply watched, perhaps in awe, perhaps in guilt, as the last human disappeared into the storm. The ground trembled as thunder rolled overhead. The vault awaited below, and with it, the truths buried beneath centuries of conquest. Elias didn't look back. He didn't need to. The dead never look back. He descended into the darkness, carrying humanity's silence with him like a sword. The stairway into the sanctum vault spiraled downward into a hollow of ice and steel. Elias descended in silence, the alien torch in his hand casting a pale green glow against walls etched with runes that shifted faintly when touched by light. The air grew colder with each step. It smelled of dust and ozone, the scent of machines long dead. Above him, Vandrix Prime groaned beneath its own weight. The Dominion's capital was collapsing, but here, beneath its bones, something ancient still slept. He reached the bottom at last. The stairway ended in a wide chamber that opened into shadow, vast, circular, cathedral-like. The ceiling was lost in darkness. Dozens of towering data spires encircled the center, each humming faintly with stored energy, flickering with the ghost light of alien memories. And there, at the heart of the room, stood a single stasis pod. It was unlike the others, smaller, older. The casing was transparent crystal, its surface cracked. Inside was the faint outline of a humanoid form. Elias stepped closer, breath catching in his chest. A human. He froze. For a moment, the universe itself seemed to go still. The figure inside was a woman, frail but unmistakably human. Her hair floated faintly around her head, preserved in a soft halo by the stasis field. She looked peaceful, timeless. Elias pressed his trembling hand to the crystal. God, his voice broke. You're real. He scanned the alien console beside the pod. Its script was unreadable, but the structure of the control line, the rhythm of their patterns, made sense to him after years of observation. Slowly, carefully, he pieced it together. The pod's systems were barely alive, running on emergency reserves. One wrong input could end everything. He hesitated. His mind raced with questions. Why was she here? Why would the Exeer preserve even one human when they destroyed all the rest? And then, the answer came, whispered by the Dominion's arrogance carved into the very walls. Study what you fear. The Gaiwer had kept her, not out of compassion, but out of terror. They feared humanity not because of what it was, but because of what it could become. Elias took a breath and began working the controls. Lines of alien symbols blinked, rearranged, and then the pod emitted a long, low tone. The crystal began to melt into light. The woman gasped, a sharp, sudden breath as color returned to her face. Her eyes opened, unfocused, darting in confusion. Elias caught her before she fell, lowering her gently to the ground. It's all right, he murmured. You're safe. She blinked, her gaze settling on him. Her voice was weak, barely more than a whisper. Who are you? Elias Reeve, he said quietly. Last human prisoner of the Aria Dominion. Her expression shifted. Disbelief, then relief, then grief all at once. You survived. He gave a faint, tired smile. Seems we both did. Her breathing steadied, though her body trembled. My name is Aria Kellan. I was part of the resistance. They captured me during the siege of Titan. Elias froze. Titan. The memory surged. The last great defense before Earth fell. The final broadcast he'd ever heard before his capture had come from Titan Command. He thought they'd all perished. They preserved you, he said slowly. Why? Aria's eyes dimmed. Not to study me, she whispered. To study what I carried. She reached weakly toward her neck, revealing a small metallic implant embedded just below the skin. A genetic archive, a seed of humanity's neural code. They called it Project Dawnborn. It holds everything, memory, emotion, will, a blueprint of what we are. Elias felt the weight of her words settle in his chest, a living echo of humanity. And they couldn't destroy it, Aria continued. They tried, but the archive adapts and it evolves, so they locked me away instead. Waiting, watching. The chamber trembled as another explosion rumbled above. Dust drifted from the ceiling like falling stars. Elias helped her stand. We have to get out of here. There's a ship above. It still flies. She looked toward the stasis pod, then the towering spires. These systems, they record everything. If we can access their archives, we might learn where the rest of the Dawnborn signals were sent. Others may have survived, Elias's pulse quickened. The thought seemed impossible, and yet everything about today already was. Then we'll find them, he said firmly. Together, they approached the central console. Aria's trembling fingers danced over the alien glyphs, her implant glowing faintly in response. Streams of light burst across the spires, cascading in golden waves. The air filled with whispers, voices from centuries past, fragments of battles, orders, screams. The Dominion's history unfolded in a storm of memory. And beneath it all, one word repeated again and again in the Xir language. Resurgence. Aria turned to him, eyes wide. They knew it was coming, Elias frowned. What? She met his gaze, voice trembling. Humanity's return. They tried to stop it, but something else survived. Somewhere out there, Dawnborn awakened before me. The lights dimmed. The chamber began to quake. Systems overloaded. Elias grabbed her hand. We're leaving now. As they fled toward the surface, alarms echoed through the dying world. Behind them, the vault collapsed, not in ruin but in awakening. Energy surged through the planet's core, sending waves of light rippling into the sky. Vandrix Prime was no longer silent. It was calling, and across the shattered galaxy, someone, was listening. The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet, or perhaps it was merely deceptive. For centuries, humans had been erased, their colonies burned, their fleets shattered. And yet in the silence, a signal pulsed, faint, insistent, and unmistakably human. Elias Reeve adjusted the controls of the HFY scout ship, now augmented with the remnants of Vandrix Prime's alien systems. Beside him, Aria Kellan monitored the ship's arrays, her implant glowing softly in sync with the signal. Coordinates confirmed, she said. It's coming from the Ashen Belt, between the remnants of the Rigel cluster and the core shards. A dead region. Or so the Dominion believed. Elias exhaled slowly. Dead to them, not to us. The Ashen Belt stretched across space like a scar, filled with drifting debris from countless collapsed civilizations. Rusted hulls of Xir cruisers floated among shattered moons, their lights long extinguished. But Elias had learned to see what the aliens could not. Opportunity hidden in ruin, life hidden in death. He leaned forward. The Dawnborn archive, when it's not just a memory, it's a guide. It's a beacon. And if it survived here, then humanity has not truly ended. Aria nodded, her eyes fixed on the pulsing signal. If the Dominion kept records, this is where they might have sent fragments of other humans. Pieces of the Dawnborn code. We might not be alone. Elias's hand hovered over the controls. Every instinct screamed caution, but something deeper, older, whispered urgency. Humanity was fragile, but human will, that could bend stars. The ship shuddered as they entered the outer edge of the Ashen Belt. The debris field was a labyrinth. They weaved between destroyed moons, dodging magnetic storms that could tear the hull apart. Elias's pulse matched the rhythm of the signal. Stronger, faster, more insistent. Then he saw it, a structure, enormous and unnatural, hovering silently among the wreckage. Its shape was jagged, angular, almost organic. Light flickered along its surface, sending shadows across the twisted metal of ruined ships around it. Aria gasped. The archive. It's here. Elias gripped the controls. Dock carefully. If it senses us. The structure pulsed again, brighter this time, a low hum vibrating through the hull. It was alive. Or at least it remembered life. As they approached, a field shimmered around it. Protective. Adaptive. The Xir systems could not penetrate it. Elias and Aria exchanged a glance. He nodded. She nodded back. Together, they initiated a manual override, guiding the scout ship through a narrow gap between debris. Sparks flew as shields brushed against energy barriers. The ship groaned. And then silence. They had passed through. Inside the heart of the archive, the walls pulsed with golden light. A voice whispered across the void. Not alien, not mechanical, but human. Memory, will, warning. Elias's heart thudded. It's speaking... Yes, Aria breathed. It knows us. A projection appeared before them, flickering like sunlight across water. It was a human figure. Male, young, tall, with eyes that seemed to pierce through time. Who are you? Elias demanded. The projection's voice was calm, deliberate. I am Dawnborn 1, the first fragment of humanity preserved in this archive. And I am not alone. Elias felt the weight of the words. Not alone. Others survived. Somewhere. Pieces of humanity scattered across the galaxy waiting for this moment. We have waited. Dawnborn 1 continued. We have endured. And now the time has come. The HFY dominion is fractured, but they still hunt. They do not understand what they fear. You must gather the fragments or humanity will be extinguished forever. Elias's fingers tightened on the console. We will find them. Aria's voice trembled, but her resolve was clear. We will. And we'll make sure the Dawnborn signal is never silenced again. The archive pulsed brighter, and a map appeared in the air before them, a lattice of glowing nodes scattered across the galaxy. Each one marked the location of a surviving human fragment, each one a spark waiting to ignite a fire that could burn across worlds. Elias studied the map. The nodes were few, but each represented hope. The Dominion's arrogance had underestimated humanity. But now, the last human prisoner and the Dawnborn one stood ready to remind the galaxy what humans were capable of. Then we begin, Elias said firmly. One world at a time. The signal pulsed again, steady and unwavering. It was a heartbeat, a promise, and a warning. Humanity had returned. And across the silent, shattered cosmos it would be heard. Above them, the ashen belt seemed to stir. Ships long thought dead hummed faintly. Lights blinked in hidden corridors. Somewhere in the black of space, the first fragments of humanity waited, ready to rise. Elias looked at Aria. The galaxy will remember us. She nodded. It has no choice. And in the heart of the ashen belt, the Dawnborn signal roared to life, a spark of human will that no empire, no matter how mighty, could ever extinguish. Stars burned cold and distant as Elias Reeve and Aria Kellan navigated the fractured lanes of the Rigel cluster. The Dawnborn signal pulsed from their ship's console like a heartbeat, guiding them to the first of the surviving fragments, humans who had endured in hiding, some in stasis, others adapting to alien worlds, forgotten by time and erased from memory. Their first stop was a derelict orbital station drifting above a dead moon, its hull scarred by centuries of cosmic storms. The station's systems flickered to life as they approached, recognizing the Dawnborn signature. Inside, they found a human, a woman named Lyra Vance. She had survived alone, maintaining the station's machinery and collecting fragments of Zyre intelligence. Her eyes widened at the sight of Elias. A human. Alive. Her voice trembled, a mixture of awe and disbelief. I thought we were all gone. Elias's smile was faint, almost weary. Not yet, he said. But that's about to change. Lyra joined them, her knowledge of Zyre technology proving invaluable. She helped calibrate the ship's systems to locate other fragments, amplifying the Dawnborn signal across sectors previously considered lost. As they traveled from system to system, more humans emerged. Each reunion was quiet at first, cautious, unsure if this was a dream or a trap. But when Elias and Aria shared the truth of the Dawnborn archives, hope ignited in their eyes. There was Terran Holt, a former engineer who had hidden beneath the crust of a barren planet for decades. There was Celine Kael, a fighter who had evaded Zyre patrols by living among the shadows of asteroids. Each survivor carried a piece of humanity's will, skills, knowledge, memories, and the stubborn courage that had once made their species masters of the stars. Elias watched them, feeling a spark he hadn't felt in decades, connection. Humanity, he realized, was not just a species. It was a thread that refused to break no matter how many times the universe tried to unravel it. But their resurgence did not go unnoticed. The fractured Dominion, while weakened, had not abandoned vigilance. Scattered patrols and rogue fleets began to track the rising human activity. Some sought revenge. Others feared the Dawnborn signal could inspire rebellion. On a distant world called Orlan Vex, Elias and Aria found a colony hidden beneath the ice. A group of humans had built rudimentary shelters, surviving in harsh conditions while avoiding detection. When they saw Elias, their first reaction was panic, then awe. He raised his hands in peace. We are not here to destroy, he said. We are here to remember, to rebuild, to remind the galaxy that humanity endures. The colony welcomed them cautiously, then slowly. As understanding spread, they embraced the truth. For the first time in centuries, humans stood not as fugitives or prisoners, but as a rising force bound by shared survival. But Elias knew the path ahead would not be easy. For every fragment they found, There were Zir remnants hunting them. For every spark of hope, there was a shadow waiting to snuff it out. That night, aboard their ship, Elias stood before the console displaying the glowing map of the Dawnborn network. Each node represented a human, a fragment of civilization waiting to awaken. Aria joined him, her eyes reflecting the constellation of lights. "We've done well," she said softly. "But the galaxy is still dangerous. The Dominion may be fractured, but it is not dead." Elias's gaze lingered on the nodes, a storm of determination settling in his chest. "Let them come. Let them see what we are capable of." The last human prisoner escaped for a reason. To remind the universe that we are not finished. Not yet, not ever. A transmission pinged. A message from a distant fragment they had just contacted. The voice was weak but full of determination. "Elias Reeve, the Dawnborn, we are ready." And in that moment, the galaxy shifted. From the ruins of countless worlds, scattered humans began to rise. Across the cold void, lights flickered back to life. Communication sparked, coordination formed, and the fragments began to move toward one another. Elias and Aria watched from the bridge of the scout ship. Humanity was no longer silent. The Dawnborn signal pulsed stronger, a beacon of resilience and defiance. "This is just the beginning," Elias said. "The galaxy thought it had killed us, but it only delayed the inevitable. Humanity will rise, and together, unstoppable, unbroken." Outside, the stars seemed to burn brighter, and somewhere across the vast darkness the first true whispers of revolt began. The galaxy trembled, not with the power of fleets nor with the tyranny of empires, but with a force long underestimated, humanity reborn. Elias Reeve stood at the helm of the united Dawnborn fleet, a formation unlike any the Zir Dominion had ever imagined. Ships of all sizes, patched together from the wreckage of destroyed worlds, floated in precise alignment, each one carrying a fragment of humanity's will, survivors who had endured in hiding for decades. Aria Kellan joined him on the bridge, her presence steady, her implant glowing with the amplified Dawnborn signal. The network pulsed through the fleet like a heartbeat, synchronizing minds and machines alike. Elias's eyes scanned the holographic map before him. Worlds once thought lost were lighting up with activity, colonies contacting one another, coordinating, preparing. Humanity's resurgence was no longer isolated. It was a wave ready to crash across the fractured Dominion. "Status?" Elias asked. "All fragments accounted for," Aria replied. "Communication secure. The Dawnborn signal is reaching every surviving system. Even some Dominion patrols are being intercepted." "They are confused." Elias smiled grimly. "Good, let them be. They underestimated us once. Let them see what happens when the hunted remember who they are." The first target was Vandrix Prime, the very world where the last human prisoner had awakened the Dawnborn archives. Its skies were still gray, its cities shattered, but its orbit was alive with dormant weapon platforms, remnants of the Dominion's defenses that had yet to fully deactivate. As the fleet descended, Elias addressed the assembled fragments through the Dawnborn network. His voice echoed across thousands of ships. "Today the galaxy remembers humanity. Today the Dominion sees that erasing a species is not the same as ending it. We are the children of a burned world. We are the heirs of 1,000 lost colonies, and we are here to take back what was stolen from us." Cheering erupted across the fleet. Ships' hulls vibrated with renewed energy. It was not just a battle cry. It was a declaration of existence, a warning that humanity would no longer hide. The orbital defenses activated, streaks of plasma firing toward the Dawnborn fleet. The Exir had learned nothing and that humans did not wait. Elias gave the order and coordinated strikes from every ship hit simultaneously. Shields flared, weapons discharged, and the Dominion's remnants began to fall. But Elias did not revel in destruction. His mind was sharp, his strategy precise. Every move minimized unnecessary loss, every engagement calculated. He remembered the cost of war, the weight of lost lives. Humanity's resurgence was not vengeance alone. It was justice tempered by endurance. As the battle unfolded, scouts reported fragments of other humans signaling from distant systems. Some had been living among alien populations, learning, adapting, surviving. Others had been preserved in stasis or hidden outposts. All were rising now, converging on Vandrix Prime. Elias turned to Aria. "This is bigger than any of us imagined," she nodded. "And yet it feels right." The Dawnborn Signal is stronger than ever. We're not just surviving, we're inspiring. Through the chaos, Elias felt something he hadn't allowed himself in decades. Hope. Pure, unyielding human hope. Every fragment of humanity joining the fight was a statement that life could not be erased by fear, that courage could outlast tyranny, and that the human spirit was indomitable. The orbital towers collapsed. Fandrix Prime's skies cleared as humans reclaimed the planet. Across the galaxy, other systems responded to the Dawnborn signal, joining the uprising. The Dominion's fractured fleets retreated disoriented, uncoordinated, facing not a single enemy but a resurgence that spanned stars. Elias stood tall on the command bridge. "We are more than survivors," he said, voice echoing across the network. "We are humanity, and humanity endures." Aria placed her hand on his shoulder. "We've done it," she whispered. "We're alive, all of us together." Elias's eyes turned to the stars. The galaxy stretched infinitely before them, vast and uncharted, and for the first time in centuries it was not a place of fear. It was a place of possibility. "Not just alive," Elias said, voice firm, carrying across ships and worlds. "We are awake, and we will never be silenced again." Above the shattered worlds, across the ruins of empires, the Dawnborn signal pulsed like a heartbeat, strong and eternal. Humanity had returned, not as a whisper in the darkness, but as a storm, fierce and undeniable. And the galaxy would remember them forever.